Welcome to The Power of the P, the podcast designed to help you become empowered in your truth, free of fear. I'm E.L. Brooks, your host, here to bring you expert advice and effective tools based on neuroscience to help you deal with all the stressors in life, relationships, and work. I'm here to keep you off that struggle bus through the power of the P. Are you ready? Then let's go. Welcome to The Power of the P, episode number 2. Thank you for tuning in. If you're not familiar with the show's format, it's like a Dear John life advice show, except for I'm EL. So it's Dear EL, where followers and subscribers send in questions to things that they're struggling and dealing with. And I'll pick one and sometimes two questions, and I'll give insight, provide some effective tools that are backed in neuroscience, and I'll offer one key takeaway at the end that you can log into your memory to help you become more resilient and emotionally stable. So today we have a letter from Julia, who's trying to find herself. So all I have to say is, Julia, welcome to the club of being human. You'll learn that we're all trying to find ourselves. And you'll also learn that this is a continuous process. So don't be discouraged and don't worry because you got this. So our key objective today is to learn the process of finding yourself. And this is so key to us to experiencing a joyous and fulfilled life. And what you'll learn today, a satisfied life. So let's dive into Julia's email. Julia writes, I'm reaching out to you because I'm in need of some guidance. For as long as I can remember, I've felt like I've been wearing masks, trying to fit in, conforming to the expectations of others, and losing sight of who I truly am in the process. I just ended a 5-year relationship where I lost myself again, doing everything to please my partner. And during those 5 years, I've grown further from my true self. I know this, but I'm so overwhelmed. Where do I begin? How do I embark on a journey to find my true self? I want to embrace all of me, but lately, I'm just feeling lost and lonely. Julia M. So first of all, Julia, thank you for your true vulnerability and transparency. And just know if we all continue to ask why and take that leap into our vulnerable side, it will always get us through to the other side, through to the next level. So Julia, you're on the right path. And I'm sure that the information that we'll expose to you today will assist you tremendously as long as you apply it. So I want to read some statistics so that you don't think that this is just a Julia thing, because this truly is a global issue. So it says 33% of the world's population report that they feel lonely. 52% of Americans report feeling lonely, and 58% of those Americans report that they sometimes feel like no one really knows who they are. So I could give you all kinds of intelligent reasons why that is, but I'm going to keep it really, really simple. You see, we're born pure love at the core, and we're introduced to a society that is programmed around self-loathing. So we're all experiencing what is called cognitive dissonance. And that's because we don't know who we truly are. And some say that we come here to forget so that we can remember. And some say that that is really what the entire journey of being human is really all about. So if we don't know who we truly are, how do we expect others to know? How do we expect to connect with others if we don't connect with ourselves? We have to realize that our battle is an internal battle between love and fear, our core self and our shadow and our ego states that form what I call our self gap that needs to climb. Got it wrong, I apologize. But those are the words that are inscribed in the temple of Apollo at Delphi in ancient Greece. So I recently saw a podcast with Mathew McConaughey and Ed Marlette around this very same topic. So ironically, the planets are aligned for you today, Julia. I actually read your email, then I saw the podcast and decided to incorporate some of the terms that Mathew was mentioning that align with some of the methods that we use. So you've asked the universe the oldest question known to all humans, and it's about to answer you through Mathew McConaughey and me, EL. I had to say it once. Pretty cheesy, right? All right, so back to business. Mathew said, and I agree, that finding your identity is more of a process of eliminating than a discovery. And I always tell everyone that you need to look. You can't find if you're not looking. My grandmother used to say, if you go looking for something, you're going to find it. Might not be what you want, but you're going to find it. And Marcus Aurelius said, finding yourself again is part discovery, but more elimination once you discover what's not aligning with that source of strength within you, which, by the way, that source of strength within you is your soul. It's the habits that don't serve you. As Mathew McConaughey said, they don't give us green lights in the future. Green lights are the habits that are consistent with the integrity of your path. And he calls it the science to satisfaction, the habits that serve you and pay you dividends. What are you eating that makes you feel good versus what are you eating that makes you feel off? Eliminate that. Who are you hanging out with that fans your flame, as I always say, versus
Who's trying to piss on your fire and throw shade? Eliminate them. What time are you going to bed? When do you feel rested? When do you feel off? Discover how many hours of sleep that you need that will pay you dividends and eliminate all the other patterns. He says when you eliminate all the bad, you'll catch more green lights. And I've personally been living this way for 8 years. I don't call them green lights, but I love that reference because it sticks with you, which is the reason why I'm bringing attention to it. It's easy to remember. And let me show you how aligned I am with you, Mr. McConaughey. On my phone for the last 8 years, I have this daily reminder. I don't know if you guys see that or not, but I'll read it to you. And it says, replace current habits that are not serving my truth with successful habits that will. Being disciplined is better than being motivated. So Matthew says the science to satisfaction leads to the art of living. And I love that statement. But what does it mean? To me, it means living with full intention, focus solely on what lights your soul on fire. What sets that soul on fire? And that's being mindful of all of your experiences, the good, but more importantly, the bad, so that you can eliminate, you can edit and design the life that you desire and deserve. Now, we codify the science to satisfaction in 4 stages that we'll cover as we go along. And then you'll discover the 5 phases of designing your life, which is our version of the art of living. It's 9 touch points to manage the quality of your life with the objective to live wholeheartedly and free. Now, my experience is that you cannot appreciate anything great until you've experienced something bad. That is the duality of life. We appreciate the beauty of the rainbow because the rainbow always follows the rain. We don't take the rainbow for granted because it represents the calm after the storm. It gives us proper perspective. That's the power of the P, right? Most people can't appreciate what they have because they don't know what they're looking for. So they continue to chase everything. And I'm here to tell you what you're really looking for is an emotion, and that emotion is love. Emotions are associated with meanings. So we put a meaning to the things that make us happy, that we're programmed to chase because we're made to believe that this is what a happy, successful person is supposed to think, do, and more importantly, have. We make that mean something, but the meaning underneath the career success, the financial success, that successful, loving relationship is love. It's the association with those things that make us feel that we really matter and that we're worthy. But if we achieve these feelings externally, we're associating our identity with someone or something to make us feel good. So if and when we lose that thing or someone, we suddenly feel unworthy. We lose our identity because it was attached to something outside of ourselves. Does that make sense? Well, if it makes sense, now let's make really trying to find is self-love. And we can only find that by looking within ourselves. We need to drop down inside ourselves. As Abraham Hicks says, we need to tap in, tune in, and turn on. But sadly, what most of us unconsciously look for are short-term payoffs. But short-term payoffs usually have long-term damage because short-term payoffs are in the wrong location. And when we search in the wrong location, we find validation, false forms of acceptance, and mostly fantasy. But that's not what the soul is looking for. So we move on and continue to chase. And unfortunately, a lot of people stay stuck in this pattern because they haven't learned how to eliminate the bad. So the process of eliminating is really determining what's not paying you back in the long run. What patterns? That's always around patterns. But too many people are focused on instant gratification, so they can't see their patterns. So you need to write this down. Chasing instant gratification will always keep you distracted. So you need to develop skills. I personally focus on 3 key skills. If you hang out with me, you're going to learn how to step into your power. You're going to learn about emotional intelligence, and you're going to learn how to organize your time to be more efficient by proximity, because those are the skills and habits that I focus on because they serve me. So Matthew says that you need to look at what habits are giving you a good earn on your investment, which ones are paying you dividends, and more importantly, which ones are keeping you in the debit column. Now, let's take drinking, for instance. That is something that I'm currently trying to eliminate slowly out of my life. My experience is with drinking can lead to hangovers and at least feeling off part of, if not all of the next day. So if we were to zoom out and look at drinking in an objective light, we'd probably see that drinking has a very low return on investment. In fact, it's actually more of a liability if you were to study the recent health reports. It has zero benefits and typically causes a lot of pain for a lot of people in the long run. But I've learned in my many decades on this planet is that our pain has purpose. Our pain is the greatest teacher. We need to learn what we don't like in order to really discover what we do like and need. And that is called alignment. So the first thing we need to know regarding finding ourselves is this key formula. So please grab a pen and write this down. Pain plus reflection equals progress. I'm going to say it one more time. Pain plus reflection equals progress. You need the hangovers. You need the heartbreaks. You need the betrayal, the loss of job, the loss of friends, even the loss of money sometimes. All the things that can create fantasy that pulls you away from who you truly are at the core. All of the things that create distraction because we're associating our identity and our worthiness with everything on the outside. This doesn't allow you to focus on your core self. So you need to experience the pain to get you to reflect inward. Then you can start to eliminate the habits, eliminate the friends that are costing you too much, the friends and the things that are giving you zero returns. And when you do that, you'll be left with the compounding assets that will serve you and pay dividends down the road. As Mathew says, all right, another horrible impression, but it's good stuff. I appreciate what he's saying, and I think you get it, right? It makes sense. I actually call it the Tao, being in flow with the universe, not resisting and not forcing. Taoism translated means the way, and pain plus your reflection helps you find your way, the way back to yourself. As I mentioned before, there are patterns in life that pull us away from who we truly are. Mathew reflected back in the day when he had less than $1,000 to his name, and he was so desperate to find an agent. He was like, I need an agent. And his buddy was like, no, you don't. You need it too much. You need it too bad. They'll smell it all over you. And you'll be one and done. And you're better than that. He said, what you really need is go hang out with your buddies. Go ride your motorcycle. Come back, reset, and just be yourself. And that's what he did. He went out with his buddies, rode across the country on his motorcycle. And he came back. And when he came back, his buddy was like, now you're ready. And Mathew said, ready for what? Because he was so locked in, being in the moment. And his buddy said that we have a meeting with William Morris tomorrow. Mathew said, had he gone into that meeting 5 weeks prior when he really wanted to, he would have blown it. He would have leaned into that meeting. He would have oversold himself and he would have talked too much and they would have smelt it. Instead, he went into that meeting thinking that they actually needed him more than he needed them. And it was that shift that made all the difference because he knew who he was and what he was capable of. And at the time, he only had one movie to his credit, and it was Dazed and Confused. So I can tell you what Mathew did. Mathew got into the receiving mode. Mathew believed he was worthy, and he closed that self gap. I call it bringing our light back into our shadow and our ego that simultaneously blinds the ego, that allows you to just be. Desperation is an extreme behavior. It's a byproduct of fear. And usually when you're vibrating in fear, you don't feel worthy. You don't feel like you matter and you don't feel seen because here's a clue. You're not seeing yourself. And that's what others are picking up on. You come off as fake, phony, and desperate. So you need to get into the receiving mode and stop being in a hunter and gathering mode. You need to stop chasing because when we chase, there's a bit of desperation, which blocks us from getting the things that we want. We're forcing things. We're not allowing things to just flow. When you're in the receiving mode, you're more integrated. You're not really in fight or flight, and you're not in your shadow and your ego. You're actually calm and you're clear. But we're conditioned to chase and pursue more. Pursue that career, pursue that job, that relationship. The chase is in us to get more. We believe that the answers are in the more. We associate it with staying hungry and feeding the fire within. The irony is people think if you lose your hunger for more, you lose your fire, you lose your drive. No, it's the opposite. When you start to enjoy and be in the moment, you're no longer in fight or flight. So you have more energy to clearly go after the things that are more in line with your true character. So the next thing I think that is crucial in finding yourself is distinguishing the difference between joy and happiness. Happiness is fleeting. It's tied to dopamine. It's results oriented. It's tied to ifs and wins. When I get that job, when I buy that house, if I win the lottery. Dopamine is about bringing the future to the present. And that's it, which is why you eventually feel empty every time you've achieved something that you've previously desired, because dopamine has done its job. So then dopamine makes you upgrade your ISO to go after another bigger accomplishment. It's a zero sum game. Trust me, I've experienced it. I was a millionaire at 30 thinking that that was it. And of course, it wasn't. So then I upgraded and challenged myself and became a multimillionaire at 40. And of course, that wasn't the answer either. Then it was the dream houses, the fleet of cars, the watches, nothing stuck. So I tell everybody happiness is a moving target, which is why the richest kings and the current billionaires can never get enough. They're never satisfied. And remember, we're talking about the science to satisfaction that leads to the art of living. If you're not satisfied because you feel lack, there's no amount of money, no amount of success, no amount of love that can cure that. Joy, however, is about the journey. It's the connection to your soul, being in the moment, knowing that there's no finish line. And that's key because that allows you to stop chasing. I preach, discover what you enjoy and you'll be in joy more often. I personally enjoy reading and learning. I enjoy going to the gym. I enjoy hanging out with my friends. And I enjoy helping corporations and individuals find solutions to their problems. All of those things feed my soul, make me feel alive, worthy, and enough. So when you find the things that you enjoy and make sure that you do them, you'll experience more joy more often. And that is the science to satisfaction. But joy is subjective. The things that bring me joy may not resonate with you, but that's okay. But most of our suffering is around a subjective mind in an objective world because we don't embrace each other's uniqueness. So we judge ourselves. That's the self loathing, right? So this means that you have to be the guardian of your mind. You must have positive thoughts. So what I tell people, it's simple. Figure out what you enjoy, and that will immediately put you in joy. We tend to complicate life by overthinking, usually focusing on the things that we don't want, the things that bring us pain. So if you want joy in your life, find out what brings it to you and focus on that. It's that simple. So what blocks our joy? Mathew says that social media has a lot of us living in the third person. He says that we're all acting like Leon Lett or Leon. And if you don't know who Leon Lett is, he was the defensive tackle for the Dallas Cowboys. And in Super Bowl 30, back in 1995, he recovered a fumble and was about to run and score a touchdown. And rumor has it that he looked up at the Jumbotron to celebrate, which allowed him to slow down just at the 1 yard line. The ball fumbled through the back of the end zone, wiping out a short touchdown and giving the Buffalo Bills a first down on their own 20. And it was a major epic fail. And the irony is this happened way before social media, but it's still relevant today. And that is like a metaphor to our lives. We actually bump up against the goal line or we see the goal line and we tend to slow down. And Mathew reminds us that Bo Jackson, another football reference, he didn't just cross the line. That's how living in joy is. You put your head down, and occasionally someone taps you on the shoulder, and you look up because you won an award or you hit this milestone. It's important to celebrate the wins, even the small ones. And you're like, cool, head back down. You're not even grinding because you're enjoying the journey. You're in joy with the process. Joy is how you get and stay in the receiving mode. And the best way and the surest way to do this is to learn what you stand for. You need to know what you stand for. Peter Marshall's famous quote, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And for a period of time, in essence, we all become people pleasers trying to fit in. And it's by design because our get in line, fall in line, and act like sheep. This is why we compare, but we can start to claim our uniqueness by discovering what we stand for. In martial arts, they always start out with your foundation. If you don't have a good stance, you can't build upon that. You'll be limited in all your movements and all your applications. If you look at the construction of any great building, it starts with a solid foundation. If you plan to build a skyscraper, your foundation has to be big, solid, and deep. So the same goes for us humans. Those who have solid foundations are not easily swayed. Your foundation is your values, your principles, and your priorities. They will always govern your behavior. So if you want to find your higher version of self, you need to have some really high values and principles. Otherwise, you'll blow through life like a feather in the wind. So if you're intentional about your values, they'll keep you aligned and integrated, which will help you stay on your path to your sovereignty. Now, I spoke about staying on your path and not getting stuck in episode 1, answering Jeremy's question. So having solid values principles, and priorities not only helps you find yourself, it also helps prevent you from losing yourself in that job or that relationship, like you mentioned, Julia, in your email. So, one of the first principles you learn when you work with me is to set your intentions with no attachments to outcome. Just keep your head down and keep running past the goal line. That's freedom. When you can immerse yourself into just doing, not caring what they think or thinking that they care, that's freedom. When you can just do you, because let me tell you, no one else can be you, that's freedom. That's when life happens. You're no longer surviving, you're starting to thrive. Now let's recap what we've covered so far. Satisfaction. And this allows you to just be with no destination, no end zone, no attachments to opinions and outcomes. Really, the law of detachment, which is the second principle you learn working with me, which allows you to now begin the art of living. On yourself as a full-time job. Just make sure that you have job security. And that simply means that you're committed to always working on yourself to improve and grow. So, how do you do that? Well, you need to make sure that you're living a very intentional existence. That's designing the life that you desire and deserve. And you have to remember that you're the creator always, and you're the artist. But you need to know what your grades are in life. You need to understand what the report card consists of so that you can start to grade your life. I always tell people you can't manage what you don't measure. So when we think about it, we're all actually trying to manage our lives, right? So one can say that finding yourself and maintaining yourself is very similar to project management. So why not implement a mechanism that represents the 5 phases of project management? And voila, that's what we teach. Now let's discuss for you to reflect and repeat the process. What you'll learn is the more frequently that you measure, the more rapid you can course correct and stay on your desired path. Now, I'll personally encourage all of my clients to reflect quarterly. That's every 3 months. And that's a great way to continue to find and manage yourself. Remember, I said that this is a continuous process. When we stop learning, we stop growing. All stoppage begets more stoppage. Now, let's take phase one. Find a method or process to measure your current baseline. Now, here's where the rubber hits the road. To find yourself, you need to work on defining yourself. And to define yourself, you need to know where you are. Again, when performance is measured, performance improves. When performance is measured and reported back, the rate of improvement accelerates. So the first thing we need to do is to fight our distractions with intentional distraction. We need to stop scrolling and comparing. Comparison is the thief of all joy. So stop looking at everybody else's life and comparing. The analogy that I use is like you're in your own car trying to navigate your own vehicle, but you're using someone else's GPS system. You're not plugging in your own coordinates in your own vehicle, so you're not going anywhere. And you can't go anywhere unless you have 2 critical data inputs. Number 1, where are you starting from? And number 2, what's your target journey? What direction do you want to go? So no GPS system will work without the first data input. Where are you? So let's start there. So you need to find a system or some sort of process to measure where you are, something that creates a baseline so that you can have an idea of how close, more importantly, how far off you are from your desired outcomes. Phase number 2 is use that process to figure out your gaps and your blind spots. How far off are you in the important categories of life? This will allow you to implement an effective strategic plan. So when I work with corporations, we do what is called a SWOT analysis. What are the places that you're operating in the black? That's your strengths and opportunities. And more importantly, where are you operating in the red? That's your weaknesses and your threats. And this insight is so critical to outcomes because it provides clarity so that you can take the right action that's going to move you in the right direction, the direction that's going to close those red gaps, the threats to your identity and the person that you're aiming to be. Now, I'm biased, but we developed our own Qualia scorecard. That's a quality of life assessment test, and it focuses on 9 touch points that either adds or detracts from the quality of your life. And this allows you to design the life that you desire and deserve. And if you want, you can email us at helptolovechannel@gmail.com. Put finding myself in the subject line, and I'll make sure that you get a free copy. So the 9 touch points are as follows: love and connection, emotions and inner peace, truth and purpose, health and happiness, life balance is key, and intentions, stress and pressure, wealth and prosperity, physical and psychological. That's a big one. And perspective and expectations. And when you take our assessment test, it will generate a score that has three measured results. The first one is optimum quality. This is what we're striving for. Alignment, what Harvard studies have shown and proven to be the best qualities to a long, fulfilled, and satisfying life. Number two is honorable quality. You have your sights on the target, so you're making the right adjustments to get to optimum. And number three is need more intention. And sadly, this is most people's baseline. And if you don't improve, you're almost guaranteed to live a mediocre life in survival mode, which is why this is so important to find yourself and manage those qualities. Now, one of the aspects of life that no one gets to avoid is continuous work. Whether you have an optimum quality score or a need more intention score, you have to continue working on yourself. You have to measure to see what changes are happening and why. Because change is the only constant in life. Everything changes. We're either upgrading or downgrading in real time, moment to moment. Mathew calls it debits and credits. You need to keep operating in the black, similar to what I mentioned with my approach when I'm working with corporate clients. When you're operating in the black, it's all profits, it's all payoffs. When you encounter some reds, you now have the awareness to take immediate action to course correct. I'll give you some examples. So for me, I'm an entrepreneur, and the mistake that most entrepreneurs make is spending too much time on the business, even if the business is in the black, in solid black. Our family life tends to slip into the red. Even our friends can slip into the debit columns. For moms, at least most moms, it's all about the kids. So they're fully operating in the black when it comes to taking care of their kids. But their wife duties, date nights, the intimacy with their spouse is usually slipping in the red. So I work with couples and I see it all the time. But the biggest one that tends to slip into the red for everyone, young, old, men, women, other, is our health. We're so focused on chasing and pursuing from an external means that we neglect ourselves, we neglect our health. We're not putting on our oxygen mask. We're not sharpening our saw because we're continuously sawing away. Again, we're outward facing, blindly chasing something or someone to make us feel complete inside. It's the wrong approach. You have to find yourself and you have to love what you find to continue to grow. At my highest financial net worth, that was all in the black, my physical health was deeply in the red. It suffered. And even though I could feel it, it wasn't confirmed until I received data from my doctor. That's when I had the awareness to take actions to close the gap. I could see the score, which allowed me to be intentional about improving it. If I showed you a picture from 10 years ago, you'd see a person who looked much older than I do today. I looked older, I felt achy, but those looking from the outside in would say I was living an amazing life. But my qualia score was in the need more intention zone. It's called outwardly successful, inwardly tortured, which is why you should never compare. You don't know what's really happening, what's going on inside of people. So just stay in your lane and just do you. So by checking in and measuring where we are currently in life at any given time, we can better navigate and close the gap to who we want to be. So if you're at a need more intention score, that happened for a reason. And that reason probably saw a gradual change that compounded over time that got you to this place. Now, I have a funny story that kind of explains how this happens. So I have a large shower head that has about 30 mini spouts. And I had this brain fart because I was wondering why the shower pressure was so low. I started checking the shower pressure in the bathroom and all the sinks were operating fine. It was just the shower head was kind of trickling. And then it dawned on me, like, even though I never had to experience hard water in my Southern California place, my place I used to have in Palm Springs had hard water. So it was customary to check the pipes and clean the shower heads. And I said, why don't I just try and clean the shower heads? And when I started cleaning each individual spout, it had mineral buildup. And then voila, the pressure was back. Now operating in the black, no more impediments, no more blockage. Everything is flowing again. And that is how our lives can be. For not actively working on improving and growing, we tend to let things pile up in certain areas of our lives. Most people are operating and optimizing for one or two areas and letting the other 7 fall into the red and pile up, which is the reason why the majority of society is living a mediocre life. So you need to be intentional about checking each individual spout, metaphorically speaking, to make sure that they're clog free. In our case, it's the 9 touch points that add to the quality of your life to live wholeheartedly and free that allows you to stay in the black. and recognize when you're slipping into the red so you can course correct. That's how you have to approach life so that you're always aligned. That's how you find and manage yourself. It's constant reflecting, navigating, and closing gaps. Marcus Aurelius stressed the importance of doing self-reflection every single night. That's how he ensured he was becoming the person that he wanted to be. And that's how you stay on the path. So my takeaway is this. In life, all we're ever doing constantly is collecting data. When we're not focusing on what we want, our subconscious is collecting data to confirm a hidden fear belief that causes us to be stuck and unaligned. It's unconsciously filtering our inputs through a fear lens, and this causes us to focus on what we don't want, the pain, the problems, and the doubt. But once we are aware of what we do want, we have better control over the inputs. We can eliminate the things that cause us the pain and be clear about the things that bring us joy. And joy allows us to stop chasing imaginary destinations because we now know there's no finish line. And again, one of the ways to get there, Julia, and everyone else that's listening or viewing this, is by implementing the 4 stages to the science to satisfaction and the 5 phases to finding and managing your life. That is the art of living wholeheartedly and free. Now you know. One love.
Today's episode was sponsored by Help to Love, a platform to open your mind, achieve mental agility, and integrate into the person that you're meant to be. With a wealth of resources and expert advice at your fingertips, Help to Love makes prioritizing your mental well-being easier than ever. It's a non-judgmental approach to mental wellness to help you design that 10x life you deserve. Sign up today at www.helptolove.com. Join the thousands of users who have already discovered the transformative power. Register for the free webinar that will open your mind and plant seeds for your ultimate breakthrough. If you felt this episode was helpful and insightful, please like, share, and subscribe so that you'll be notified of all of our upcoming content and special announcements. I'm E.O. Brooks, your host. As always, I thank you for your support and especially your time. One love.